Hello. Yeah, so Christian will be slightly belated. So I'm gonna be the driver at the wheel tonight, launching it a bit early. I also have a slight cold. I don't know if it's evident, but I don't have a problem doing this really. I'll be fine. um, but as a filler, waiting for the wingman to show up. For all intents and purposes, I'll knock out what happened this week in terms of NCAA commitments, as the CHL to NCAA pipeline has been pretty productive recently. So we'll start off with some local news with the Diego Budazzoni from the Portland Winterhawks commitment having been announced not too long ago, which is noteworthy and made sense from the angle of the fact that Diego's brother Mirko is already at UMessel currently. Both are cousins to Buffalo Sabres young wonderkind Zach Benson. And with as I expected, Norm Bazin really tapping into his Western Canada bona fides with who he's been pursuing. We had more developments there with a pretty big one as London Knights goaltender Austin Elliott, who's had quite a path in the CHL, with him initially having been with the Saskatoon Blades at the start of this year before they placed him on WHL waivers, which he then cleared, which led to him being placed on CHL waivers, initially claimed by the Barrie Colts, and then, of course, traded to the Knights, where he's produced just such a stellar record, having been undefeated in his first 20 appearances with a 2.27 GAA and a 916 save percentage, which shows that he was getting it done, not just because of how good his team was, but because of him. He'll be a Riverhawk beginning next season. That meaning the consistency that we've had at that position, down at the Zonga Center, historically, of course, peaking with Connor Hellebuck, with some other notable names through the years, such as Tyler Wall, and of course now Benny Halas is demonstrably one of the best goaltenders in the nation in a manner that was not really expected at the beginning of the season. But nevertheless is occurring. Elliott will be almost assuredly, as an 04 born with, this extensive major junior experience and clearly a lot of prowess. Another entry into that canon that I'm really looking forward to seeing. But there was also a big wave beyond just that. Hockey commitments on Twitter also announced Nathan Pilling of the Seattle Thunderbirds will be attending and playing at the University of St. Thomas next season as well. Ty Higgins of the Rouyn-Noranda Huskies in the QMJHL has committed to Bowling Green State University for 25-26. They also report Tanner Wallace of the BCHL's Salmon Arm Silverbacks has committed to the University of Alaska Anchorage for the 25-26. So it was cool to see the still being relevant NCAA producer. They also will have Luis Wayman of the Penticton V's attending Cornell in 26-27. The QMJHL also produced Loic Usuro of the Chicoutimi Saguenayens to the University of Maine. He will be a Black Bear beginning next year. Let's see. We had an OJHL commitment. Cameron Hankai will be attending Bowling Green in 26-27. Austin Zemlak of the WHL's Tri-City Americans is committed to Arizona State University to play for the Sun Devils in 26-27. There was one more. Let me pull out the details so I'm as precise as possible here. Da, 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 da. Yeah, let's see. Let's see. Well, that's frustrating. Pardon me, this feature is not working the way that it should. Shipley, where are you? Son of a gun. Yeah, there we go. It was announced a few days ago that the UMass Lowell Riverhawks landed another commit in the form of Luke Shipley, a right-handed defenseman of the Brandon Wheat Kings in the WHL. 43 points in 44 games played this season. 2004 born, another guy bringing a lot of valuable CHL experience to the table down at the Zongus Arena. That should be another good addition to their depth next year. I think they did well in the recruiting and landing transfer portal splashes this year, which partially accounts, along with having slightly better health luck. Obviously, we've seen them had some snags, such as Mirko Budazzoni having not been available at the beginning of the second half of the year, which partially accounts for some of the disappointment out the gate. It doesn't entirely justify it, but it was one of those things. But next year should be even better from how it sounds. Okay, we have our second head here momentarily. If it processes properly on the first attempt. Yes! That's rare. That almost never happens. What's up?
Yeah, well, yeah, call, the cast, just getting my setup all different and shit. Orange jersey for high visibility tonight.
Word up.
There is a much, yeah, I'm not gonna say anything offensive. I'm not gonna start us off on the wrong note. I will not choose violence and remember where I am for once in my life.
And for one last commitment to the NCAA, we had some pretty glowing praise from Puck Preps about four-star recruit Justin Cody of the Quebec Rempart in the QMJHL, who will be headed to Clarkson University, I believe, beginning next season, if I'm not mistaken. So that was that's another noteworthy one. A big development in that evolving environment. Let's see. Yeah, so we also had some milestones. You have a hunch. You guys have an idea of how my QMJHL coverage has been. We had two Everett versus the world matchup, so to speak. Noteworthy one being, the game of the week against Medicine Hat Tigers in the Wednesday night at the Dub matchup. Medicine Hat ended up taking that one, which was part of the path to Gavin McKenna becoming the third fastest player in the WHL to reach 200 points since 1996, with him hitting the mark in 118 games, trailing just Connor Bedard at 107 and Pavel Brendel, former Calgary Hitman, at 96. But also last night, Everett, still nominally the best team in the league based off of points, but clearly having a fast rising challenger in the form of Spokane, who had that terrific trade deadline that they did. I mean, like even just the addition of Andrew Crystal has just you know added such a layer of dynamism to their attack. Um, they, of course, fresh off of a 5-1 victory against the Victoria Royals, they defeated the Everett Silvertips 10-3 last night. On the backs of the efforts of 9 different goal scorers, I believe I read, which was just unbelievable. It shows that they can get it done with their depth, even against very strong competition. They're not a top-heavy team at all, despite how it appears. Although, of course, when you have both Crystal and Catton on your top line, that does definitely help a considerable amount. So that definitely factors in as well. And for one last superlative of sorts, we did have a noteworthy event happen also pertaining to a London Knights player in last night's matchup. Of course, that is Easton Cowan. Let's see. Can I find the right matchup? Let me make sure I got. Yeah, let's see. Just making sure I got this all lined up. Yep, just as I thought. He had his shorthanded assist on Jacob Julien's goal, which opened the scoring in that matchup against the Erie Otters, extended his already record regular season point streak across OHL history to 63 games as London skated to a 4-2 win against the Erie Otters. Albeit that was his only point in the game, as Denver Barkey came away with the first star with 1 goal and 1 assist in that matchup. And Jared Woolley, the defenseman, had 1 goal and 1 assist of his own to get the second star. On the other end, the third star went to Erie's left wing, Malcolm Spence, 25 draft eligible prospect who had 1 goal and 1 assist of his own in that matchup. It was definitely a big blow to that squad for them to lose Matthew Schaefer for 3 months due to a broken collarbone. But I have to imagine that it'll make all the difference when he comes back in time for their playoff aspirations. That's just going to be a total adrenaline shot, Pulp Fiction style, once it occurs. And I think that about covers it for this week's Dev Block.
Yeah. Yeah, Malcolm Spence is definitely going to be, he's been a special player a little bit here.
Yeah, for what he lacks in the top end capability, really, he has really an impressive work rate and motor, probably one of the best in this class, but I will say it doesn't really bode well for the OHL. Well, I mean, obviously this isn't occurring in a vacuum, because you look at this 2025 draft class at large, a lot of these guys, it was like a whole class of Aaron Kiviharus where pretty much everyone is a D-1 merchant just about, and it's proven to have less depth, which I think shows that some of the estimations about the class were aggressive, but nevertheless, I think the fact that he's in the conversation about absolute best, and even bearing in mind he was the 2nd overall pick in his OHL priority selection, only not being first, that because of Michael Mesa's exceptional player status reception, it's just which might say something about that particular class of Ontario-based products as well. It just doesn't indicate that the OHL is really producing much in the terms of high-end quality to this draft. The drop-off from the top 3 of Schaefer, Mesa, and of course Matthew Kachuk Jr. in the form of Porter Martone. Exceptional winger. I can't like that front end. That like net front guy with just like an exceptional amount of skill who's just so dominant in his capacity that it makes up for the lack of skating. Like the drop off after those three is just so pronounced in terms of like the quality of contribution to this draft from the O. It's actually really disappointing. I didn't think going into this year that like I was going to be watching significantly more WHL games than OHL games. I thought it was going to be more of an even distribution like it was last season, but that hasn't been the case. And like when Schaefer wasn't able to participate in that top prospects game, like my level of engagement with it was just like significantly dropped. I still watched the whole thing, but like I was like, yeah, I'm watching Jake O'Brien be a wrecking ball. Like, yeah, I'm so stoked to see like a guy who's probably going to be another toolsy middle sixer drafted by the Detroit Red Wings just absolutely destroy everybody.
So I guess on the topic of WHL and just the scouting reports that are out there, is Roger McQueen the boomer bust prospect in that 4 to 12 range this year?
Um, he is like he's kind of grown off of me. Like even without the injuries that have him looking like the sequel to Nolan Patrick. Like he's so Noel Pat that it actually hurts. He's so Noel Pat that he's actually already a Philadelphia Flyer. Like right this second, he is already drafted by the team. Um, like I just look at him and I'm like, yeah, he's big and he's fast, but like he hasn't like tempered that enough with like an adequate dose of hockey IQ or like really all that impressive high end mechanical skill or a little bit of deception, but not a lot. Um, he's just kind of like very much like a diet Quentin Byfield, even on its face, to where I'm like, the boom potential is there, but it wasn't as high as it was projected in his D-1, like not even close.
Hmm. Yeah, I've been trying to find really any prospect I really like outside of that that top group this year. And like as we know, there's gonna be a guy outside of like the Canadian top three guys. You're really the Canadian like after Schaefer, Marteau, and Hagen's Misa, like there's gonna be one guy who just randomly ends up being very good. Not sure who that's gonna be yet, but because we know there's always that one, you know, uh, is star-crossed bozo in every draft class that somehow ends up being better than he should be.
Yeah, you look, it's actually like the more the narrative goes on, where I know it's like a homer take coming from me, but the more the Cole Rezny narrative progresses of him having been, and continuously just like uh, severely underrated in every evaluation, to where if you see him at like I don't know 14th, that is a high rating for him. And with it reaching its zenith for him being ranked 34th in the midterm North American rankings, skater rankings, I'm like, what? 34th all time, right? Like 34th this year? That I would sooner believe he was the 34th best skater of all time from North America than this year. That's just bullshit. Like that literally is just like an I have a size and skating boner taken to the max for him to be ranked 34th of all North American skaters. Especially when you have like assess like him fitting like one the Zach Benson mold of like sneakily NHL translatable to where you can see him playing full time in the NHL in his D+1 on top of being cut from uh, a similar cloth stylistically to the likes of Mark Stone, Ryan O'Reilly, Marco Rossi, these guys who are, you know, very much above serviceable, well above, not quite in that superstar class, but at least like an all-star who can contribute to successful teams. I mean, like when we've had the ROR talking point be a thing, including coming from his head coach James Patrick, who of course very experienced, very much been in the game a long time. It's something that you shouldn't take lightly. It's not just a That's not just like a coach standing up for his guy. That's an informed opinion. Like really, that it's something that shouldn't be taken lightly. To where like he is very much a strong candidate, especially if he ends up on the right roster.
Yeah, yeah. I don't really know what scouts are doing anymore. Like, I don't know. I also don't know what NHL GMs are doing anymore either. Uh, as I proposed in our group chat earlier, alluding to this draft class as well, like, I really reflected on a lot of the trades that we've seen this week and this year. And, I really just got to thinking about the JT Miller trade. And, it makes me happy. Gonna talk about my feelings here because that's hockey's about feelings now. Um, but my thought process being, I remember one of the biggest narratives of, when they initially signed JT Miller to the extension. I remember the big question because I ask this question constantly. Whose timeline on this roster are they trying to win under? And I think we talked about this a little bit last year as well. And with JT Miller, it was a pointless contract extension when it was made for Vancouver in the sense of like EP40 and Hughes are approximately the same age and their competitive window is roughly the same. Giving a big money long-term extension to JT Miller didn't make sense when they did it. And then you talk about the culture of like the Canucks overachieved last season. They weren't as good as their record indicated. They won a lot of games they shouldn't have. So we got into this weird thing where this team could actually win a championship on Miller's timeline. Things inevitably went poorly when you have a team that's not prepared to actually contend yet, with a first/second line 31-year-old center on a fucking $8 million deal that cannot contend. And we're surprised something went wrong here. Like, I shit on the Boston Bruins, but like at least the Boston Bruins are bought in that they're trying to win in the David Pastrnak timeline. Yeah, it's a huge fucking mistake. Two, they don't have the roster talent or the assets to actually win shit in the rest of Pasternak's prime. But at least Don Sweeney is actively committed to, hey, we're going to try to win on Pasternak's timeline. Like, both teams doing a terrible job here, but at least Boston, in the words of that Family Guy episode with Bill Maher and fucking Brian Griffin's "Wish It Want It Do It," like at least Don Sweeney stands by his shit. Like Patrick Allvin has not stood by his shit here, and somehow the players and Pedersen specifically is held accountable for the lack of fucking vision and ability to make a concise decision. Like you look at Bill Zito, and he made a fucking decision as soon as he got the job. The Florida Panthers are going to win on Barkov and Ekblad's timeline. And they did everything in their power with their balls on the table to win on that timeline. And, if it didn't work, it didn't work. But, if you're going to fucking buy in on an idea and have a plan, at least stick to the fucking plan.
You know that if EP40 being dealt is still on the table, they're just going to get fleeced there as well because of poor, public relations handling of that topic.
Oh, 100%. I mean, they've handled that. Like, this is, ironically, the Vancouver Canucks organization has earned its reputation for being a dog shit Mickey Mouse fucking AHL tier organization relative to their peers. And why do I say this? If they end up trading Elias Pettersson, you didn't learn from your past mistakes. This is fucking quite literally quite fucking literally the Corey Schneider Roberto Luongo situation 10 years later. Like, how did you not like you played the game with Schneider and Luongo, you traded both, you lost both fucking deals, and you have nothing to show for it. And here we are in 2025 doing the same goddamn thing.
Yeah, it's actually like funny how it seemed on its face that the Alvin Rutherford like tandem was supposed to be everything that like late stage Mike Gillis was not, because like you basically like had like a model of what not to do, and they seem to be avoiding you know those sort of aggressive mistakes, and just that seems to be like it seems to be that for whatever reason they're just going in that same pattern yet again. Like I don't know what it is with Aquilini, just in him just being attracted to dummies, and apparently even like perpetuating that himself. But like that seems to be his MO.
Like I'm so disappointed of like how do you just make the same stupid fucking mistake with multiple front office regimes? Like yeah, we talk about the Flyers and the concept of you can kill the man but not the idea in terms of roster construction. But like, the Flyers aren't going to sit here and you know we're not going to replicate the Brizgalov, acquisition where you're going to move on from two of your best players to make cap space to solve a problem that could probably like, when teams make fucking massive screw ups that set them back half a decade, most organizations realize and don't repeat that same mistake. And here's Vancouver seemingly doing it every 5 to 7 years. And like it's another like, and they're not the only team in the NHL guilty of this. Like the Chicago Blackhawks, another thing they're guilty of is not even understanding roster construction and timelines. Like, yeah, Tyler Bertuzzi and Nick Foligno are such a Mickey Mouse leadership duo to put around Connor Bedard. Like, I wouldn't be fucking surprised if Connor Bedard didn't extend in Chicago and forced his way out in 2 years. I wouldn't be shocked. I mean, you traded Taylor Hall for a third round pick, effectively, while also retain like you got a third round pick to get rid of Taylor Hall and eat salary. Yeah, that's the kind of organizational expectations I'm going to set for a franchise player. Like, if I'm Connor Bedard, what's the incentive to sign long term for a team like the Blackhawks that is just doing random shit? Like a third round pick to get rid of a veteran mentor for trading Hall. Yeah, I think I've always thought Taylor Hall was overrated. I think his downfall after his heart-winning season needs to be studied, as it's got to be one of the biggest drop-offs in NHL history. But nevertheless, the man's experience brought so much fucking value to the Blackhawks room to just really set the precedent as an organization of yeah, no, we have a toxic culture where our former captain Jonathan Taves, and coaches and GMs covered up his sexual assault allegations. They all very well knew what was going on. And instead of improving our fucking culture for the next generation, we're just going to do the exact opposite and just expect that nobody's going to call us on our bullshit of being one of the worst run teams in the league.
I mean, we know the real crux of the beginning of Hall's decline was that he literally broke his leg the next season and then just was never the same guy. And it's just imagine how you have to feel as your franchise star. I've seen it argued by some the ringside general, really was the best return that they were going to get. But what sort of message does it send when the team has already been? So there are two things about my apprehensions about Davidson's choice and the way he's gone about ripping things down to the studs, is that for one thing, it really establishes a negative culture around your biggest star, and just sets and internalizes a poor set of expectations. and when you're someone like that who's like has that competitive mindset, it's tough. Like, and like the biggest source of apprehension I had to PK Subban's talking point about how that should be handled from a coaching standpoint was that uh, when the case of both him and Matvei Michkov, those guys probably both like have a similar psychology to the one that, from a competitive standpoint, that and as an athlete, to the one that Kobe Bryant had in his early years at the Lakers. People talk about the Mamba mentality, and it was a real thing, but early, like under Phil Jackson, Kobe Bryant was very much a coddled superstar because uh, they would basically put all the pressure on Shaq because he was established and knew what the psychological demands of the job were. They would absolutely never hold Kobe's feet to the fire, uh, you know, during his early years because effectively, uh, you know, you're internalizing a negative message in someone who's, an adult, but also psychologically, developing in a very high demand mindset. And plus, the thing is with guys like that is that they are harder on themselves than anybody else could ever possibly be on them. So if you say are constantly exerting negative emotionality towards them, you're basically affirming their self-deprecation. So for that to also be exacerbated by, an already awful organizational situation just makes things worse for Bedard. But then on top of that, it makes your maneuverability when you have so few assets to make those next moves to get out of rebuilding and into building because you just don't have anything to move to make those big trades. And you're banking on basically what ifs in the free agent market. I mean, they're certainly not going to do it by the drafting route, considering how underwhelming the prospect pool is, and just what honestly, a pathetic job has been done by the scouts. So it's just like with the Taylor Hall move, you're basically like ripping it down to the studs even further and only like further establishing just like such a negative, you know, pattern around the org in terms of overall quality, beyond what it already was.
And you know what I was thinking about a little bit yesterday in reflection to the Subban Messier bullshit about Bedard and Mishkov was, Greg Cronin is not a good hockey coach on many nights. But I do remember one of his most self-criticisms or self-reflections from last year's, end of the season presser about how he's like, yeah, I probably should have benched some guys more, but I also knew these guys were hard on themselves. And like, as a coach and as a father figure to some of the younger guys at times, like, do I want to kill this guy's confidence or do I want to teach him a lesson? Is something I wasn't prepared to make decisions with. So I think in a lot of situations, I trusted them to own their own development in that situation in so many words. So like when even dumpster fire head coach Greg Cronin understands the value that like hockey players aren't fucking stupid, and if you don't like bench them in retaliation for a mistake, they can't like there's been a lot of narrative of the Trevor Zegras fall off this season, but like he's still playing the best, he's playing the best hockey of his career off the puck when he's been healthy. His offensive impact has been limited due to bad coaching of shuffling lines. But like those two things aside, like it's hard to develop a guy who plays 10 games at a time and then misses 10 games. So like uh, I think the mentality of letting guy like I think this old school mentality doesn't really I don't think it matters at the NHL level. Like, sure, I watch a D3 hockey game, and you watch guys at a D3 level that need to be benched because they don't give a shit. Because, like, oh, we're playing college hockey, boys. is sometimes a mentality. But like at the a 19-year-old at the professional level isn't just fucking gonna sit there and I don't know. I don't know.
The way I see it is,
Old.
like, the fewer reps that those dudes are getting, like, the less, like, really that they're even going to develop the adequate reads and decision making anyways. Like, really, the guys who deserve to be, like, to have their feet held to the fire are the ones that are the vets who have had enough time to develop that decision making. Like, I look at Owen Tippett and Travis Konechny, and those guys are committing multiple acts of terrorism for sure. And I think about the fact that I think I can only really, like, you know, recall one instance in the last couple of years where Tippett has been benched by Torts, and it was uh, once in a game against the Rangers last season, and that was the extent of the discipline he's ever faced from Tortorella for his own hubris. Other than that, he's had the longest leash possible. It's like common sense just dictates holds the guys who should know better to the higher standard. Like, if you're like in your mid 20s and you are already on an 8-year deal, you should know better than to be doing the dumb fucking shit that you're doing out there.
For sure, and like even from a coaching point of view for both organizations, like, and to be fair, in terms of line mates, I think they're both getting about the same level of shaft at this point. Like playing Bedard between fucking Landon Slaggert and Ryan Donato is a form of terrorism in its own right. Like, to be fair though, I mean Tyler Bertuzzi's just gonna waste opportunities and take stupid fucking penalties. So like, it like as long as Couturier doesn't get injured the rest of the way, anytime Mishkov is out there with any other center besides Couturier, it just feels like a waste of everybody's time at
Which
this point.
has been happening a lot because, like, oftentimes you're seeing him with, like, Noah Cates or, equivalents thereof. Like, he's played time with Scott Lawton, although Lawton has seen increased time on the fourth line left wing spot and other such spots because he's not even trusted to play his natural position at this point. Let's see. Today we had, obviously, we're in a difficult spot with Ryan Paling injured, and we dealt out two forwards in their replacements that we received in the trade have yet to had their visas processed. So we had them them running 11-7 today, which of course in the process Risto got injured, which was just I guess part of the convenience of having 6 defensemen, but 6 extra defensemen beyond him. But it was a drag. Like you see him removed from the game. You have 2 considerations in your mind there. Like, one, that the trade could possibly happen. The other thing is the thing that could have occurred was his that he got his annual injury before the trade deadline, which always happens, which was pretty remarkable. Yeah, we had him on line 3 with Couturier this time around, but like Anthony Richard, the guy who was too much of a grinder for the even more grindy Bruins, was on the left wing spot, and he had the 3rd lowest TOI of any forward on the team, which was actually, I think, 2nd lowest, 3rd at Football Skaters. It's like, I don't know what the fuck we're doing here, having him be at risk of playing fewer than 10 minutes a game and playing such a little 5v5 time. Like, you know, we haven't scored a goal on a goaltender in over 190 minutes of game time at this point. Uh, this marks the first time in franchise history that we have been shut out in 3 consecutive regular season games. The only time it happened in 3 consecutive games at all was in the 2002 quarterfinals against Ottawa, or as Bill Meltzer erroneously referred to it as the 2022 Eastern Conference Finals, which I thought was hilarious. But like our resolution is to play the grinders who are already losing their minutes as is more rather than play the goal scorer and offensive engine. By far our best playmaker as well. Like just having him consigned to bottom 6 minutes. And it's just like I hear the rhetoric like of him being gassed. It's just like then don't play him at all. Make him a healthy scratch because like you don't get better by playing less. You get better by resting. Like if you're going to the gym, you don't spend less time in the gym to recalibrate yourself. You either work out other muscles or you take a day off. Like having Mitchkov play fewer minutes because of exhaustion, be it physical or mental due to the increased schedule demands of the NHL in contrast with Russian hockey, as well as him accommodating for a type of training that he is not accustomed to, as in addition to the bulk that I believe that it seems like the org had him put on, even though they claimed he's never had the crux of this was he's never had an NHL dietitian before. It's like, no, this dude is like basically 20 pounds heavier than he was during his KHL and MHL days. Like, this is your fault. Like, just have him be a healthy scratch again. Like, that's the resolution here, not to fucking have him play like 9 minutes of 5v5 time.
You know, it's really painful to think that the Sharks coaching staff is handling the load management for Celebrini and Smith better than Torts and Soderblom. Because, like, Celebrini, who's also had, struggle, like, Celebrini's had struggles adapting to NHL physicality with the injuries he's had. But at least every time the fucking guy is on the ice, he's playing with a combination of Tyler Toffoli and William Eklund. And even Will Smith is always out there with Alex Wenberg and Fabian Zetterlund. Like, yes, the San Jose Sharks are the worst team in the National Hockey League, mainly because their blue line is just not good. But, like, at least their fucking young stars are, like, in a situation where they can learn and get reps and get experience. Like, Celebrini being a minus 20 is fantastic for his career development. And everybody's like, well, that's bad. What do you mean he shouldn't be exposed to that? Like, how do you learn to play off the puck? I don't know. You have a bad blue line, you have bad defense, you have veteran forwards, and you have a young good goalie. Like the Sharks actually have like put Smith and Celebrini in a position where it's gonna hurt, it's gonna suck here their first couple seasons, but at least they're playing with guys where they're gonna fucking learn and they're gonna grow and they're gonna develop. And like it's so crazy to me that like there's nothing that stops, the Chicago Blackhawks from going out and getting a guy like a Toffoli. Like, there's nothing like, I can shit on the Anaheim, I almost said Jacksonville Jaguars. I can shit on the Ducks for, their veteran additions, but like Frank Vetrano and Ryan Strome and Alex Killorn have been immensely valuable in the development of Zegras when he's healthy, McTavish and Carlson. Like, there is substantial value to having, quality vets and significant ice time. Like it's not rocket surgery, but yet like Seattle gets it.
You know what's funny to me is like I was reminded of the fact that Ryan Warsofsky currently serves as the youngest head coach in the NHL behind the bench of the San Jose Sharks, and like they're going through the process in a way that is painful, but could very well pay more dividends than it did for the Philadelphia 76ers. But it's like, and it's just, it tells me that, like, you know, uh, Torch is not successfully walking along the fine line. Like, this was a development year, and the development isn't going well. He has semi-competitive aspirations, but the team is basically spiraling into an ethical but not planned full-fledged tank, and a lot of it is his fault. It doesn't just fall onto the you know fall on the shoulders of the health issues. And all I'm just thinking is, like, man, I fucking want David Carl behind that bench. I mean, like, evidently this is already like a nepotistic hiring process for them, anyways, where they conduct like these damn things. So it's just like, why not go out there, Danny Briere and Keith Jones, just fucking get Matt Carl's brother into your organization. Like, you're already like of this mindset that you want to commit to guys that you know personally, because that makes the decision easier. Obviously, the means by which we've been handling that topic in a joking sense on Flyers Twitter has been intentionally hyperbolic. Like, oh, they can't trade for this guy, they don't know him. Like, what he was really saying, Keith Jones, with those remarks, it's more mocking. We're more mocking Kevin Cruz's interpretation of that, like that they won't even bring in guys that they're not familiar with. It's more so that they're not going. The crux of what Keith Jones was saying there was like, uh, you know, we're not going to make a full-fledged, long-term, big commitment to someone unless we have enough familiarity with what they're about, and really take that sort of risk, unless we can do it in an informed way, was what he was really saying with that. But with that in mind, like, with this proven track record that David Carl has, and with him having this secondhand relationship with the org, it's like, hey, I'd say there's familiarity there. Like, why not, like, why not go all in on that if you have even an inkling of the of an idea that he might have even so much as a vague interest finally in getting into NHL coaching. This is not a Dave Hackstall situation, like, not even close. This guy, like, Dave Hackstall couldn't carry David Carl's jock. Like, let's be real here.
Tying some thoughts together here, there's no chance in hell that Matthew Schaefer's not a San Jose Shark, right?
Yeah, that's kind of been my anticipation for a while. Much like I really, really suspect that Anton Frondell is going to be an Anaheim Duck.
Yeah, the only thing that I think the only thing that really comes down to the draft lottery at this point, like, if I remember the rules to the lottery correctly, there's no way the Sharks fall below 3 at this point, and I don't really see anybody moving above them that's going to take Schaefer over Hagens, Misa, and Martone. Like, no team is as starved for defensive prospects, and I know the Sharks have Dickinson. I'm not, but the thought of Schaefer, Dickinson, and it's part of their top 4 in the long run. You know, I feel like the Ducks are going to do something silly. I feel like if the Ducks don't win the lottery and get Martone, they're probably just going to trade back. Because, like, they're either going to have Martone or McQueen, knowing Verbeek, and if he can't get one of those big punishing boys, he's probably just going to trade back in the draft.
Yeah, the only thing that gives me pause is, like, there's this habit I've noticed that if you have a U23 defenseman who's already capable of playing D1, playing like 1D minutes, uh, teams will hold on to them for dear life because they're so rare. And Schaefer is in that archetype of the very, very infrequent sure thing defensive prospect, which we haven't seen since Rasmus Dahlin at minimum. So, like, him being ranked number 1 is not an apparition, and I can see a potential best player available situation there. In terms of organizational fit, I've seen like him be like, let's be honest, he is a cut above Sam Dickinson as is. Uh, I have seen like San Jose as like the best organizational fit by a significant margin there, and with the opportunities that it would open up. Uh, as far as the Ducks go, I don't know. Like I can see, I can kind of see both angles of it. Like um, I could if they decide that they want to go like the high IQ Swedish forward route again. Frondell is not far removed from Carlson in terms of overall profile. The only thing that gives me pause there is that Frondell, who's probably, you know, he hasn't looked great in the RAPM models, but his underlyings have been fucking phenomenal while playing in the Hockey Allsvenskan, which is like, you know, I think that counts for more than to. I prefer to just look at the expected goals and expected goal shares rather than have the model do the work for me, because I can just have the takeaways from that rather than looking at RAPM, which, as we've mutually acknowledged, is oftentimes lacking in context in the way that it's presented and lacking in nuance. The only thing with that is that there's a chance, if bearing in mind Frondell's like status is just like such a standout name from Europe this year, probably the best one alongside the younger Eklund. I think that um, the possible way that they miss on that is if they just outsmart themselves like yet again, which is the other end of the spectrum of where things could land.
I mean, I am a big Pat Verbeek is the Cheeto man of NHL GMs. He's just so unpredictable at all times. Where like I have to look at the draft board and think about what's the most illogical, like what is the most tinfoil hat draft pick that this man can
I
figure out? And
gotta be real.
he did it.
I gotta be real though. Like we might have. I like increasingly come around on the notion that Carlson was actually probably the most intelligent pick that they could
Yeah.
have by far, and we just didn't appreciate it at the time. I think that he was. I really genuinely do think that he was, even in a face value sense, better than Fantilli. And just, is the guy that makes sense is you can the most sense out of anybody in that draft of the guy that you can take as like you know uh, the dude who immediately improves a roster the most, and basically the opposite, placing him on the opposite end of the spectrum from Michkov, wherein Michkov makes the most sense to build an entire roster around. Um, so it's like it's not like they're incapable of aptitude and doing the smart thing. It's just it's just the it, there is some volatility there, obviously, as demonstrated by the Seneca selection the next year, and it can often be in a deceptive way, just when an intelligent thing is done in hockey ops. To be honest.
You the only way I think I ever will embrace Verbeek's madness is if Seneca ends up being a point per game player for the goals next season or the year after. I don't know which year he'll be in the A. Like if Seneca fucking turns out to be a moderately capable middle six right winger, and Stian Solberg ends up being like a viable bottom four right-handed defender, I'll finally give Verbeek the benefit of the doubt that he's smarter than me.
Yeah. Well, I think we had to wait to 26, 27 because he's a January '06 birthday. Uh,
Big sad.
yeah. I I mean, uh, I will always frown upon that pick because it's just basically banking on development that they weren't really certain that he was going to get. Um, and like also that has been placed at risk because of him you know having been injured so early into the year uh this season, but like he's been on like a good growth arc. Like he's been just like absolutely having a fucking phenomenal D+1 in the OHL this year. But like, I wouldn't have done it, and I still wouldn't do it now. But like, I think when you draft someone as good as Leo Carlson, you deserve a little bit of leash. And plus, like, um, you know, I think really what should give us pause, like this year, is like, in the coming times, is like, what is the scouting culture going to be looking like overall? Because there are a lot of people involved in this process besides just the general manager. Like they took a big hit with the loss of Glenn Cochran, RIP, and it's just like how much of like how much like cohesion and coherency will there be involved in the process as like the organization continues to evolve because of that, and with them having taken such a big blow.
Oh yeah. And before our big finish tonight, I just want to stand in the background and ominously watch Kyle Dubas's work in Pittsburgh. I'll be honest, I don't really know how I feel about the trades they've made. Um, None of them are what's the word I want to use? The Penguins aren't doing it. They're no longer mortgaging their future, and you know, uh, Danton Heinen's gonna probably get traded again. Desharnais may end up lingering in Pittsburgh for a second or two. Fernstrom could be something. He could also be nothing, and that, I think that, I like the Penguins getting that Rangers pick from the Miller trade because if there's nothing I like, there's nothing more I respect in professional sports than preying on the downfall of your rivals. And knowing that that's a top 13 protected this year, and there's a pretty high probability that the Rangers are absolute horse shit in 25-26, I like that deal for Pittsburgh where realistically the Pens could fuck around with two top 10 picks in the class of 2026. So, I'm going to stand from a distance and say I respect what they're doing, even if I don't know if they did good in that trade.
Oh yeah, so you know what? I'll give credit to I'm gonna make sure that I give credit to the proper gentleman involved in the process. I'm gonna assume Martin Madden, the assistant GM and director of amateur scouting for the Ducks, who's been in the gig as the draft czar in terms of compiling like their top prospect list since 2020, after having also presided over the scouting department since 2008. Was really the man behind the Carlson selection, as he makes a point to attend every major European junior tournament. So I'm going to assume like that moment of rare competency was because of him putting in the extra like work overseas.
Liam, I'm going to ask you a hypothetical question right now, and I don't need an answer to it. Based on my hypothesis I've just stated about Pittsburgh in the class of 2026, how negatively would it impact your mental health if Keaton Verhoff and Vigo Bjork both ended up in Pittsburgh?
I mean, with the Bjork thing, I'm increasingly getting to the point where I'm not gonna say I can take or leave him. I'm still high on him, but not as much as I once was. Like it's pretty evident that Ivar Stenberg, who humorously is rumored to be attending Boston University beginning next year, which like I'll believe that when I see it. But when even Cam Robinson is beating the drum for that rumor, I'm just like, huh, that's interesting. A very vague possibility here, but one entertaining nevertheless. With Verhoff, um, I am just like I'm gonna I am not gonna be happy at all for sure. But at the same time, there's gonna be a part of me that entertains the notion like of obviously Dubas is like his first big move was to trade for Eric Carlson, so I think he's wiped some of the we had to have big defenseman stench from Toronto off of him. But yet at the same time, I wouldn't be totally stunned if like they temper everything. Some of that some of the organizational mindset adapts itself to where like they're sort of tempering the deception that makes him good and just like sort of gradually erode him into a shell of the player that he can and should be at the NHL level. Like we're looking at a guy who should be like Petrangelo and Dougie Hamilton wrapped into one, but he could very well end up being like Joel Edmondson playing D1 minutes in Pittsburgh if the Toronto Panthers emerge under Dubas control.
That line of questioning was worth my time. I got another meme out of it.
I'm not surprised.
I'm cooking tonight. I don't know if I've hit on any of these, but the memes that were spawned in this episode are, without giving any context to the viewers at home, we've got a PBS, a SpongeBob, a Naruto, and a Jacksonville Jaguars meme, all loaded up in the barrel to maybe see the light of day after this episode, and that might be the most erratic combination of four mediums.
That last one is beautiful.
Yeah. I'm a big fan of I don't know why that one just had to come. Why that one was such an inspired moment for me.
Yeah, that's just like such a rare, like, that's like a generational cook. Like, that's the only way I can describe it. Yeah,
On that note,
I should note that by beating the drum, I insist that like it's not so much a desire that so much as he's beating the drum for the authenticity of that rumor. Like he's kind of just like propagating. Yeah, it could happen. But like this is actually also just so fucking hilarious that the way it's formatted is just fine. But yeah, go ahead.
I think that's a good point to roll into our big finish while we're on a high note.
So we know that the imminence is coming along, and it even seems like it seems imminent, and we also have some indication that GMs around the league have gotten a tip that once Mitch Marner's contract expires, that he is not going to re-up in Toronto and could very well be hitting a market. That seems to be a vibe that I've been seeing. Now, this is where I get it. This is where I'm most interested about the possibilities of what could occur there. We've seen it happen that we've seen it be talked about that or rather I've kind of been engaged in some discussions about his possibility is the possibilities there of him shifting back to what was once his natural position during a good number of his developmental years, playing down the middle. Even right now, you see him play some games where they're basically having Tavares treating being treated as just a winger who's taking faceoffs, and Marner is taking the bulk of on ice center responsibilities. I really think that whatever team picks him up should be audacious enough to have Mitch Marner as a 1C in the NHL. And with that, I hope that the system that picks him up is the one that is one that encourages, that unchained animal version of Mitch Marner that is his most productive, as opposed to the one that's basically, putting in this absolute forechecking workhorse bullshit because of Austin Matthews and just this tendency for him to rest upon laurels. Because I mean, it's just like, as is, Mitch Marner is so defensively good that he can never be bad. He's just has that part of his game honed so phenomenally that, like, I think that he's just always going to produce results there. To where I think it serves to his benefit more, and to a team's, to where we have him be like his most unfiltered offensive self. I think that there's a lot of room for experimenting here, but also just doing things that are conventional wisdom. So, I really think that we see, we're gonna see some pretty entertaining, exciting hockey for Mitch Marner to be playing in like an open system with a lot of creativity and being like his most flourishing, offensively creative self in whatever path he ends up down. Like, I want Marner the 1C beginning after this current contract ends, because that's going to open up another, another run of productive seasons for him. And, that I really think that we would be all the better for it as viewers if it went down.
I'm gonna go a little bit of D3. A lot of chaos going on in D3 right now. We saw Hobart's 41 game unbeaten streak snapped at the hands of Albertus Magnus. We saw Adrian get absolutely dummied by St. Norbert's in a pair of back-to-back games. We saw Fitchburg State lose 9 out of their last 11. And we've seen Matt Gover very rapidly approach, and I need to say approach because I need to confirm whether or not he's gotten there. Stand by, I gotta look at my stat. So not only has he exceeded 1,500 career saves in the NCAA, but he is the first goalie over the 700 save threshold here in 2025. So I guess my point that I'm getting at, Shane Soderwall in his second season at Curry has now set the school's shutouts record, I might also add. So what is Christian getting at? Division III men's ice hockey is actually doing this thing called being interesting right now, where we have a lot of changing of the guard. We have a lot of players who are achieving exceptional things. Maybe none of these guys are going to get to the NHL, but we have enough guys that are cooking that are going to make the coast a hell of a lot more exciting in a couple of years. And, I've enjoyed it.
Yeah, for sure. And I mean, there are guys who take the long path to higher levels than you would anticipate. And, D3 can be like a valuable aspect for that, aspect of that phenomenon. Should be grateful for what it's been giving us the last couple of seasons. Yeah, on that note, that about covers it for this week. I anticipate that with the biggest sports and television event of the week, Fly Eagles Fly, by the way, I'm going to show some Philadelphia sports solidarity. They're not my favorite team, but I am a Howie Roseman believer. And, I've connected with plenty of Eagles fans who are actually cool people through my endeavors on Flyers Twitter, so they have my full thrust support for that event. That will be off this week, but we'll continue to be this next week in the interest of that. But we'll continue to be productive, and we'll be back in a couple of weeks, to produce some more audio visual content for you. Maybe even some reels of other nature in the interim. Uh, Maybe some stuff pertaining to my interest in the 2028 NHL entry draft class, which I have to thank everyone again who has contributed to those articles, especially the first installment of that series being as well received as it was. I really just was. I thought this was a novel idea that would be well taken, but I certainly did not anticipate that the first installment on Liam Pugh of Langley, British Columbia's brilliant hockey system to be my most popular article ever. Which it just basically happened over the course of a few nights, and I really very thankful to everyone who made that happen. And thank you to everybody who's contributing to the early reception of the Maddox Schultz article, which just came out today as well. I'm glad that there's some level this level of intrigue about what's happening over these next few classes, including guys who haven't even entered the major junior environment yet, although they will very soon. And I'll be sure to keep people updated on what they do because of this level of interest. So thanks again, and thank you to everyone who tuned in. Thank you for everyone listening on Spotify and checking us out on YouTube once it goes up on those platforms. Take care, everybody. We'll see you in a couple weeks. Have a great night.